October 18, 1943, Camp Polk, Louisiana. Major Klaus Steinbach sat in the base hospital watching an American dentist work on his infected tooth. The drill whined with a precision he'd never heard before, a high-speed instrument that made quick work of the cavity without the brutal vibrations of German dental equipment. But it wasn't the drill itself that unsettled him. It was the casual efficiency of it all. The dentist worked while humming, barely glancing at an X-ray machine that produced images in seconds. The same technology, when available in Germany, required minutes of careful positioning and often produced blurred results. Here, it was routine, just another tool in an endless arsenal of innovations that Germany had surrendered before the war even began. Remarkable, isn't it? The American sergeant beside him smiled. "We've had this model for 3 years now. They're upgrading all the camps to the newer version next quarter." Upgrading, the word haunted Steinbach. In Germany, they were rationing equipment that was already obsolete. July 2, 1943, Port of Baltimore, Maryland. The first German prisoners to arrive in the United States stepped off the transport ships into a world that contradicted everything they'd been taught. It wasn't the abundance that shocked them first, it was the precision. Captain Ernst Weber, a signals officer from the Wehrmacht's communications division, stood on the dock watching American military personnel work. Every movement seemed choreographed. Radio operators coordinated ship movements with hand signals and telephone communications that worked instantly, without delay, without static. In Germany, radio communications were plagued by atmospheric interference, equipment failures, and constant maintenance problems. The Americans seemed to have solved these problems so thoroughly that their operators treated reliable communication as a given rather than a miracle. "Look at their equipment," whispered Feldrebel, Hans Dietrich beside him, nodding toward a radar installation visible on the dock. "Is that what I think it is?" It was. The radar antenna rotated with mechanical precision, its signal transmitted to a small building where operators worked at screens that displayed real-time information about incoming ships. This technology, which Germany possessed only in experimental quantities and guarded as a national secret, the Americans had deployed at a routine cargo dock as if it were as common as a telephone. The 3-day train journey from the East Coast to Camp Hearn in Texas became an accidental education in American technological superiority. Obergefritter Wilhelm Fischer, a former electrical engineer, pressed his face against the train window and began calculating. Every mile of track they traveled included electrical infrastructure. Telegraph poles stretched endlessly into the distance, each one part of a communication network that connected the entire continent instantaneously. In his hidden diary, Fisher wrote, "The telephone lines alone represent an investment in infrastructure we could not replicate in a decade. Every small town has been wired for electricity and communication. This is not military technology. This is civilian infrastructure. What they give to ordinary citizens, we reserve for our most critical military installations. The trains themselves were marvels." Oberleutnant Robert Kessler, a Wehrmacht officer, noted the automatic couplings, the electric braking systems, the precision-engineered wheels that required no maintenance stops. The locomotives produced horsepower figures that seemed impossible, delivering over 6,000 HP with fuel efficiency. Germany had abandoned as a research goal in 1939 in Pennsylvania. The trains passed through an industrial valley that Kessler recognized immediately. Steel plants, but not like German steel plants. The furnaces operated with thermostatic controls that maintained exact temperatures. The metal was shaped by hydraulic presses of unprecedented size and precision. "One American blast furnace produces cleaner steel with fewer impurities than our best German operation," he wrote, "and they have dozens of them, not hundreds, dozens, each one individually more advanced than anything at Kruppor, Peace in Camp Hearn." Texas arrived in October 1943. The moment the prisoners arrived at the camp itself, the technological shock intensified. The buildings themselves were marvels of engineering efficiency. Stabsfeldwebel Johann Muller, a construction supervisor before the war, examined the barracks with a trained eye. The wood framing used precision-cut lumber from mills he could only imagine. The plumbing systems featured copper pipes, real copper, not the inferior iron piping Germany was forced to use, with fixtures that worked flawlessly. No leaks, no corrosion, no maintenance problems. But the truly shocking discovery came in the camp's water treatment facility. An American sergeant, proud of the installation, explained the system to the prisoners. Water was filtered, tested for purity, chemically treated to eliminate bacteria, and then distributed with automated pressure systems that maintained consistent flow throughout the entire camp. In Germany, even military bases made do with basic water systems. Disease from contaminated water killed as many soldiers as combat. Here, the Americans had eliminated that problem with engineering that seemed almost casual in its sophistication. The camp kitchen became another classroom in American technological advancement. Obergefrecher Franz Roth, a former baker, stared at the cooking equipment in disbelief. Electric ovens maintained exact temperatures without manual adjustment. Refrigeration units kept food fresh for weeks. Mechanical dishwashers cleaned thousands of items daily without breaking a single plate. But it was the automatic bread mixer that broke something in Roth's mind. A machine that kneaded dough automatically, adjusting pressure and speed based on the consistency of the mix. In Germany, bread was still made largely by hand. Here, they had mechanized even this ancient craft. They feed prisoners better than we fed soldiers, and they do it with machines that require almost no labor, Roth wrote. How does a nation develop the resources to invest in equipment for enemy prisoners? What must their own supply systems look like? By late 1943, German prisoners were being transported to work sites across America. The Geneva Convention prohibited them from working on direct war production, but countless factories could use extra labor. The American authorities, recognizing that prisoners working away from camp would see industrial capability regardless, made no effort to hide the technological marvels. Near Cleveland, Ohio, at a ball-bearing manufacturing plant in December 1943, Oberleutnant Klaus Hoffmann, a factory engineer before conscription, walked into an American manufacturing facility, and his understanding of industrial production collapsed. The precision was incomprehensible. Ball bearings ground to tolerances of plus or minus 0.0001 inches, sorted by machines that could detect imperfections invisible to the human eye. The grinding equipment operated at speeds and pressures that seemed like science fiction. The quality control process included X-ray machines that inspected internal defects in finished products. An American foreman, eager to show off American capability, explained that this facility produced 50,000 precision bearings per day, each one meeting standards that German factories achieved only through heroic effort, and at a fraction of this output, one American factory produces more precision bearings in a week than all of Germany combined produces in a month. Hoffmann calculated in a letter smuggled past censors. They are building tanks and aircraft with tolerances we thought were impossible. Their weapons don't jam. They don't misfire. This is not luck. This is engineering precision applied at scale. Detroit, Michigan, in February 1944, revealed another layer of American technological dominance. The automotive plants of Detroit represented the pinnacle of American achievement. Feldwebel Otto Strauss, a tool maker before the war, was assigned to a parts fabrication facility near the River Rouge plant. What Strauss witnessed was mechanical perfection implemented on a scale that defied comprehension. Assembly line robots, mechanical, not human, performed identical operations thousands of times daily with absolute consistency. Metal stamping machines, hydraulically powered, cut and shaped steel with such precision that no hand finishing was required. In Germany, we prize the skilled worker who can hand finish parts to specification, Strauss wrote. Here, the machines are so precise that hand finishing is unnecessary. They have eliminated the need for human skill through engineering perfection. What took a German craftsman a full day takes an American machine 30 seconds. Perhaps no technological gap shocked German prisoners more than radar and the associated electronic warfare systems. Oberleutnant Hermann Scholz, a signals officer, discovered through casual conversation with American guards that radar had evolved far beyond what Germany understood. The Americans possessed airborne radar that could detect aircraft at distances Germany thought impossible, ship-based radar that guided anti-aircraft fire with automated accuracy, and ground radar that mapped entire landscapes in darkness. Radar systems so refined they could track individual aircraft and predict collision courses. The most devastating revelation came when Scholz learned that radar was not German in origin. The British had developed early radar. The Americans had taken this technology and refined it beyond recognition. We believed radar was a German achievement, Scholz wrote bitterly. We congratulated ourselves on this technological edge. But the Americans took the basic concept and advanced it so far that their version bears almost no resemblance to ours. They have radar-guided guns. They have radar that works in any weather. They have radar that cannot be jammed. And they have produced it in quantities that we could not achieve with all our resources. Camp Shelby, Mississippi, in May 1944, offered another window into American capability. Major Edward France, a communications officer, was assigned to work at an American military communication hub. What he witnessed was a telecommunications network of stunning sophistication. Long-distance telephone calls connected within seconds. Transcontinental communications worked flawlessly. Encoding machines scrambled messages into ciphers that American engineers assured him were unbreakable. The telephone system alone represented more advanced technology than Germany's entire communications infrastructure. But the most shocking discovery was the redundancy. Every communication system had backup systems. Every backup had backup systems. Networks were designed with such resilience that destruction of individual components barely interrupted service. They have built their entire communication infrastructure on the assumption that parts of it might be destroyed, France wrote. They have created systems so robust that even if we destroyed 50% of their communication cables, the remaining 50% could handle 100% of the traffic through redundant routing. We built our systems assuming they would never be damaged. The moment we suffered bombing, everything failed. The medical facilities at American prisoner camps represented another front in technological superiority. Obergefreiter, Dr. Richard Wolff, a physician, was assigned to the camp hospital at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. What he found was a medical environment that seemed like science fiction. X-ray machines that produced clear, detailed images instantly. Ultrasound equipment, technology Wolff didn't even know existed, that could image internal organs without surgery. Surgical lights with intensity that made every detail visible. Anesthesia machines that monitored patient vital signs automatically. But the technology that most shocked Wolff was the blood bank and blood typing system. The Americans had created a refrigeration and cataloging system that allowed them to store blood for extended periods, typed and cross-matched, ready for immediate transfusion. Germany had nothing comparable. In German hospitals, we still rely on immediate blood donation from matching donors. The Americans have created blood banks that contain hundreds of units, each one typed, tested for disease, and preserved. A soldier can receive the exact blood type he needs within minutes. This technology alone has probably saved tens of thousands of American lives. Oberleutnant Friedrich Bauer, a chemist before conscription, was allowed to work in a pharmaceutical facility in New Jersey. What he witnessed transformed his understanding of German scientific achievement. American pharmaceutical companies had synthesized vitamins on an industrial scale. Penicillin, the miracle drug that Germany's chemists knew about in theory but couldn't produce, was being manufactured by the ton. Sulfa drugs, antibiotics, and compounds that Germany had abandoned as impractical were being produced with such efficiency that they were given freely to prisoners. We discovered penicillin in mold, Bauer wrote. The Americans discovered how to mass produce it. This is the difference. German science finds things. American science makes things available to everyone. Los Angeles, California, in July 1944, provided yet another shock. Feldwebel Gustav Hoffmann, assigned to work at a radio manufacturing plant, encountered a production environment unlike anything in Germany. Radios were assembled on conveyor systems so efficient that one man completed an entire unit every 45 seconds. The components were manufactured with such precision that no adjustment or calibration was required after assembly. The quality was guaranteed through rigorous testing at every stage of production. The radios themselves incorporated technological features that Germany was still struggling to develop: frequency stability that didn't drift, noise reduction that made reception crystal clear, sensitivity that could pick up distant signals. This is not just manufacturing, Hoffmann observed. This is manufacturing perfected. Every radio that comes off that line works perfectly. No defects. No warranty returns. They have engineered the manufacturing process itself to eliminate error. Even American farming incorporated technological advancement that shocked prisoners. Oberleutnant Wilhelm Neumann, assigned to work at an agricultural research station in Iowa, encountered mechanical innovations that Germany had barely conceptualized. Tractors with hydraulic systems that gave farmers unprecedented control over implements. combines with mechanical sensors that automatically adjusted harvesting height based on terrain, irrigation systems with automatic valves that delivered precise water volumes, but the true shock came in the seed selection and breeding programs. American agricultural researchers had applied scientific method to crop improvement on an industrial scale. New wheat varieties that produced 40% higher yields, corn hybrids that resisted disease, selective breeding programs that had been going on for decades. Germany tries to improve agriculture through coercion and ideological purity, Newman wrote. America improves agriculture through science and investment in research. They hire thousands of scientists to study plants. We fire them for being Jewish. This explains everything. Cincinnati, Ohio, in October 1944, revealed the depth of American machining superiority. Major Heinrich Steiger, a mechanical engineer, was assigned to work at a machine tool factory. What he discovered was that German industrial superiority was a myth. The Americans had perfected the production of machine tools, the machines that make other machines. Their capabilities exceeded German machine tools by factors of 10 or more in some applications. Precision, speed, reliability, the Americans dominated every metric. An American foreman explained casually that the factory was introducing new models every year, constantly improving capabilities. In Germany, machine tool designs remained unchanged for decades because the tooling costs were prohibitive. They can afford to obsolete their own equipment because they produce so many machines that the cost per unit of the newest designs is lower than maintaining old ones. We are forced to use machines from the 1920s because retooling would bankrupt us. In spring 1945, rumors began circulating among the prisoners about a secret American weapon, the atomic bomb. Dr. Georg Hoffmann, a theoretical physicist captured near the end of the war, was stunned to learn that American scientists had actually built a nuclear weapon. Germany's atomic program, which many German scientists believed was ahead of the world, had been working on theoretical possibilities for years. The Americans had not just theorized, they had engineered an entire industrial complex dedicated to separating uranium isotopes. They had solved problems that Germany's finest minds were still struggling with. They had weaponized nuclear energy. At one moment, I understood that Germany could never have one, Hoffmann wrote after the war, not because of military numbers, but because America's technological capability was so far ahead that we were fighting with the weapons of the previous generation while they developed the weapons of the future. We were caught in a war with an opponent who was already living in the future. By late 1944, American military psychologists documented a phenomenon they called technological demoralization among German prisoners. The constant exposure to American technological superiority had destroyed the psychological foundation of Nazi belief. The Nazi regime had promised technological superiority. It had promised wonder weapons that would turn the tide. It had promised that German engineering genius would triumph over American industrial chaos. Every day in American captivity, prisoners saw the opposite. American technology was not just better, it was better in every conceivable way. Better designed, better manufactured, more reliable, more sophisticated. Major Klaus von Hauser wrote in a letter smuggled past censors, "We were told America was a nation of cowboys and gangsters with no capacity for serious engineering. We find instead a nation that has systematized technological advancement. They do not rely on individual genius. They have created institutions, universities, and industries dedicated to continuous improvement. Every American engineer has access to research that would require a German scientist a lifetime to discover. They share knowledge across industries, they publish findings, they teach their workers to understand principles, not just follow orders." When German prisoners were repatriated in 1946, they carried with them detailed knowledge of American technological capability. Many became engineers and scientists in postwar Germany. Dr. Edward Franz, the communications officer, became a pioneer in West German telecommunications. Major Heinrich Steiger revolutionized German machine tool manufacturing. Oberleutnant Friedrich Bauer established pharmaceutical research institutes that would make West Germany a world leader in drug development. The German economic miracle of the 1950s was built not just on American industrial production, but on American technological methodology. The prisoners had learned how Americans approached innovation, systematically, scientifically, with continuous improvement as a fundamental principle. West German engineers began implementing American innovations. Precision manufacturing standards, scientific research institutions, engineering education that emphasized principles over rote learning, pharmaceutical development based on scientific method rather than trial and error. By 1960, West Germany had become one of the world's most technologically advanced nations, built on foundations laid by prisoners who had witnessed American capability firsthand. Historians have focused on American industrial production, the ability to build more tanks and planes than any enemy could match. But German prisoners understood something deeper. America didn't just build more weapons. America engineered better weapons. American radar worked in conditions where German radar failed. American radios didn't jam. American ball bearings met tolerances Germany thought were impossible. American medicines saved lives that German medicine could not. The true shock wasn't the quantity of American production. It was the quality of American innovation. German prisoners arrived convinced that Germany represented the height of technological achievement. They left understanding that they had been fighting a nation that lived in the technological future, while Germany remained anchored in the past. In their transformation lay a profound lesson. Technological superiority, more than military power, more than industrial capacity, determines the outcomes of modern conflicts. The nation that innovates faster, that refines its processes continuously, that invests in research and applies discoveries systematically, that nation wins. The German POWs had witnessed America's true weapons, not just bombs and bullets, but the systematic, relentless, organizational commitment to technological advancement. When they returned to Germany, they brought with them the seeds of a new kind of competition, not military, but technological. The competition to innovate faster, to engineer better, to systematize advancement. The Cold War would be won not by the side with more weapons, but by the side that could innovate faster. German prisoners understood this intuitively, because they had lived it as captives in the nation that had decided to compete through technological excellence rather than ideological fervor. They had come to America as soldiers of the Third Reich. They left as witnesses to what free societies could achieve when they invested in knowledge, research, and the systematic pursuit of technological advancement. America's greatest victory wasn't on the battlefield. It was in the minds of prisoners who suddenly understood that the future belonged to innovation, not ideology, to engineering, not conquest, to the systematic refinement of human knowledge, not the mythologized superiority of any nation or race. The German POWs were shocked by America's technological advantage, but more importantly, they were educated by it, and that education became the foundation of a new Germany, built on principles learned in the shadow of American achievement. They had witnessed an industrial colossus of unlimited technological sophistication. They had come as prisoners of war, but left as witnesses to the arsenal of democracy at its absolute peak. In their awe at American innovation lay the psychological seeds of the Atlantic Alliance, the Marshall Plan, and the democratic reconstruction of Germany. They had seen America, and they would never be the same. Their children would grow up in a democratic Germany allied with the United States. A partnership built on the transformation that began when thousands of Africa Corps veterans stepped off ships in Baltimore and discovered that everything they believed about German superiority was wrong. The story of German POWs in America is ultimately a story of redemption through revelation. It proves that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through destruction, but through demonstration, not through propaganda, but through prosperity, not through hatred, but through humanity. The German soldiers who witnessed American technological might became the unwitting ambassadors of democracy, carrying back to their homeland the seeds of transformation that would bloom into one of history's most successful reconstructions. Their journey from Nazi warriors to democratic citizens remains one of the most remarkable transformations in modern history. Accomplished not through force, but through the overwhelming evidence of what free people could achieve when they worked together. In the end, that was America's secret weapon. Not just the ability to produce more tanks and planes than any nation in history, but the capacity to transform enemies into friends through the simple power of example. The German POWs were stunned by America's technological advantage, but more importantly, they were changed by it. And in that change lay the foundation for a better world.